So here we are on day one of Smart Factory Expo, part of Digital Manufacturing Week. It's been a fantastic day so far, and we have another interview over here at the Manufacturer Studio. Delighted to welcome Steve Evans from the Institute for Manufacturing. Steve, you've recently given a keynote at this year's Manufacturing Leaders Summit. But before we go into that, just tell us, how have you enjoyed the event so far?
I think it's a really, obviously the big thing, right? We're all together, it's fantastic. But I also think that there is a very significant shift happening. I think all of the exhibitors are showing off their competence at driving manufacturing productivity in a very classical way. But when I talk with them, they're all interested in how they can make that twist, that slight turn, so that they can use their tools and their technology to deliver to sustainability goals. And that was not a conversation that happened when we gathered together last time and the times before. So there's a lot of noise around sustainability, and I think that's a good thing. It does mean that next year when we come back, I think there's going to be more examples. There's less examples today, but lots of conversation.
So you've seen some progress then, even in that short time, and even if it is slightly, well, we could call it minimal, but if people are taking more, paying more attention than they were in previous years, that's got to be a good sign, isn't it?
I've been in the sustainability in factories business for decades, and if I said that enthusiasm doubled every 2 years, it doesn't mean much when that enthusiasm is 0.0001%. And what we're seeing now is that it's becoming a conversation that pretty much everybody in the room wants to hold. Some of them are a bit ahead. They know what they want to say and they know what they want to ask. And some people are just intrigued about, is this thing going to be difficult for me? Is this thing going to disrupt my business plan, or is this an opportunity? And I think most people are in one of those two camps. There is only a small bunch of laggards that are disinterested, and that's a very big step forward.
Your keynote at the Manufacturing Leaders Summit centred around how industrial digitalisation can drive us towards these net zero targets. Just give us a taste of what was discussed, and can digitalisation truly be an accelerator when it comes to tackling this big issue of sustainability?
The two biggest trends in manufacturing: digitalization and sustainability. The idea that we're not going to try and understand how those two trends interact is just silly, stupid, shit, right? Other things beginning with S, if you keep giving me enough time. So it's obvious. If the two biggest trends must interact in some way, what everyone is asking is, oh, well, who's been studying this? Who are the leading technology players? Who are the leading factories who are using digital towards sustainability? And those people are being asked the question you've just asked me. So what's the evidence for this? And I'll give you a couple of examples. I've been talking with some of the Made Smarter Innovation researchers who've been working with different car factories. A lot of this is anonymous, so I can't actually name the factory.
Sure.
But one of the factories that I've just been talking with, a very well-known British factory, very, very good at labor productivity, has been using the digital tools to identify energy waste and opportunities for energy savings. And they made some changes to their practices at the weekend. And this one factory, with just one change in a corner of the factory, saved £25,000 a weekend. Multiply, right? That's a lot of money. And that comes from the fact that the digital analysis could spot a pattern in the energy data that a human could not easily spot, because there are millions of data items. And that's the power of digital, to help people see waste. And that's the first thing. It's very clear in our research, very clear in our work with companies. The first thing digital can help people do is to see things. Because actually, we're manufacturers. If we know something is wrong, we find a way to solve it. But knowing it's wrong knowing we're being wasteful is the thing that digital can help with.
It strikes me as a bit of a race against the clock with both digitalisation and sustainability. With sustainability, it's the case that we need to hit these targets at a certain point, or so we're being told. And with digitalisation, it's actually a race against the clock to reach the full potential of digitalisation. Would you agree with that?
So they are different. Digitalisation is a classic competitive race. It doesn't matter how slow we are, as long as we're not slower than the competition, right? So if everybody is slow and we're slightly less slow, we're still going to be the pioneers. With sustainability, with net zero, that's different. There's an external clock that's ticking. And that means that we can't wait 2 decades and then still be the leaders of the pack, because we will effectively be destroying the planet that delivers the raw materials and the workers and the healthy environment and the healthy air that allow us to be effective businesses. So the clock is ticking. By 2030, we have to reduce by about 45% the amount of CO2 that's going into the atmosphere from today's levels. And at the moment, we're not on that pathway, so the urgency is this decade. We often hear people talking about net zero in 2050. And that gives us the feeling that we've got 2 decades to work out what to do and 1 decade to implement it. It's the exact opposite. We have 1 decade to get halfway there, because we will need the other 2 decades to do the hard last 50%. I cannot emphasize the urgency. If you're going to do something by the end of the 2020s, that means you've got to do something in 2022. Not, let's get a working group together sometime in the next 18 months, 2 years.
I think what I was kind of driving at was, can we reach the full potential of digitalisation and what digitalisation can do in achieving sustainable growth? Can we get to that point in time? And they say that a lot of the problems caused due to climate change is irreversible at this point. But can we reach the full potential of digitalisation to really put a dent in the sustainability issue and to achieve these net zero goals?
So I think if we use the language of push and pull, if we are pushing that technology out there, then we have to wait for customers to agree to have that technology pushed upon them. And the rate of adoption, I'm afraid, if we push the technology out there, will not be enough to maintain temperatures at 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels. So that's dangerous. But what we're seeing is the technologists pushing new technologies and ideas in parallel with manufacturers pulling them and saying, we want that technology. So to me, the most important thing is the strength of the pull signal. If manufacturers want those new digital technologies to help them go to net zero, then the digital technologists will supply it in time. But you need to ask for it.
Well, it's been fantastic to get the views of Steve, and I must say, a really fascinating insight. So thank you very much for sharing that with us. Finally, what are your hopes for the rest of the week?
To have some very low carbon beer.
Sounds good. We'll drink to that.